everyone, I'm Sarah Lang, and I'm here to spark the philanthropy revolution. The word philanthropy means love of mankind. My show is all about the ways we can revolutionize our fundraising so we can raise more money and do more good. Hey everybody, it's Sarah Lang here with another episode of the Philanthropy Revolution. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a professional fundraiser. I've been at it for 35 years. I know I don't look that old, although I'm starting to feel that old. Anyway, I've been at it for 35 years. I love the nonprofit sector. I really believe that nonprofits ensure a quality of life in the United States that we wouldn't otherwise have. So think for a second about life without nonprofits, right? It'd be pretty dismal. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I feel honored and privileged to support it. So I've raised over $100 million at this point. I'm super proud of that fact. And it's just such a great experience for me to see my clients thrive. And today I want to share a case study of my longest client, Jeremiah Zinn, so that you can see the transformation that we've created over the course of the decade that we've been working together. And I want you to know that this kind of transformation is possible for every nonprofit out there. So Jeremiah Zinn is a residential social model substance abuse recovery program here in Worcester, Mass. And the social model just means that it's peer-to-peer recovery. There are case management folks on staff, there are clinical folks on staff, but really it's a model where they have 29 men at a time, and they serve between 100 and 110 men per year. And it means that the men turn to each other for support. So everyone gives and receives support. And obviously they have professional staff on hand, but it's really a model where they train the guys to turn to each other, because that's what they're going to have to do once they leave the facility. So they're teaching them how to create peer networks, how to connect with people, how to do mutual problem solve. Excuse me. So that's their main program. They also just opened a sober home, which is a project I'll talk about in a minute. And they also run a food pantry, which serves more than 14,000 people each year. So that's a pretty substantial number of folks. So when Jeremiah Zinn hired me back in March of 2013, they were running a deficit of about $5,000 a year. And obviously running a deficit is not ideal, but part of the problem was that the executive director was also serving as the clinical director of the program. And so that took precedence. You know, when you've got a house full of 29 guys who are new to recovery, that's a lot of work. And so the fundraising just kind of fell to the wayside. And maybe that's the case at your organization too, that there's no one person dedicated to fundraising, and maybe it's suffering. But we changed all that. So I came in March 2013. And by the end of 2013, they had $113,000 surplus. So they went from minus 5,000 to plus 113 in 9 months. So Stefan, I'm sorry you can't hear us. Maybe try the settings on your computer. And thanks for letting us know. If other people are having trouble hearing me, let me know. We'll try to figure it out from this end. So from 2013 to 2024, I've raised $2,569,051.32 for them, which is an average of $214,87,000 per year. This does not include the funds they receive from their contract with the Commonwealth of Mass Department of Public Health, Bureau of Substance Abuse Services, or the income they derive from health insurance. So this is completely separate from their contract with the state and the health insurance premiums they get. So what have we done with these funds? We've increased staff salaries, improved benefits, purchased all new technology, which includes a security and a surveillance system, upgraded all the office furniture, replaced 43 windows, which were all different sizes. So, as those of you who are in old buildings know, that can be expensive. We replaced all the exterior doors. We repainted the entire interior, renovated all of the bathrooms, replaced the HVAC system. So, the first time in the history of the inn, they actually have air conditioning, which makes a huge difference for the comfort for the guys living on the third floor. As you might imagine, that gets a little hot in the summer. We've repaired and painted the exterior and paved the parking lot. We've also purchased a 15-person van, which allows us to transport the guys to 12-step meetings, appointments, and activities like the Sober Softball League they participate in during the summer. So when I first walked in, here's what I saw as the challenge. The new executive director, who had been hired in December of 2012, was trying to figure out how to manage this small deficit, and obviously was not feeling confident that the current model they were using was going to work. So having the executive director serve as a clinical director and the fundraiser was clearly not working for them. So they brought me in to help. And at that point, the primary source of funding was the Mass Department of Public Health Bureau of Substance Abuse Services contract, which only covered about 66% of their costs. So this is why they were running a deficit, because their main funding source didn't cover the cost of their program. And maybe some of those that are on the line or going to watch this later are in the same situation. And in 2012, they only raised $45,500 in grants and $5,685 through their appeal. And there were no other fundraising strategies in place. So after meeting with the executive director, I figured out what the problems were. So the reputation of the organization was sagging, and there was talk at the local community foundation they might be better off merging with another organization. You do not want foundations saying that about you. No, that's terrible. So what we determined was that because of the current structure, there was a lack of leadership. So in other words, the executive director was just being pulled into too many roles. And the lack of investment in fundraising had left the inn in a position where they suffered from chronic underfunding, a small inactive board, a weak staff, outdated technology, and building maintenance that had been deferred for quite a long time. So the situation was not great, but the good news is we can only go up, right? So what I recommended were two strategies, only two, because obviously fundraising was the first one I recommended. So looking at grants, bolstering their appeal, and looking at other strategies. The other strategy that I suggested was to engage in strategic planning, because then we could identify and address myriad issues with support and participation of the board and staff. So I was very strategic in recommending that, because I felt like we needed buy-in across the organization in order to address some of the issues that were creating these problems. So, like I said, by the end of 2013, Jeremiah's Inn posted a surplus of $113,000. And at this point, they have such a large surplus that they actually have an investment portfolio. So their surplus has been pretty significant every year. We always budget for a surplus. That's intentional. And at first, the board was very, very nervous about making investments. Like, what if something happens? So we started out with baby steps. We invested in some CDs. And then once that strategy proved that it was working, the board was willing to make more long-term and bigger investments. So in 2023, in terms of grants, we brought in $219,643 in 9 months. And in 2023, we raised $265,511 and 88 in grants. Our biggest year to date has been 2021 when we raised $365,607 for them. So $365,607.30. I don't know what it is with the 30 cents, but apparently that carries over. So how do we raise so much grant money? Well, the first thing we did was we conducted research to create a really high match list of potential funders. I used 2 online grant databases and guidestar.org. I conducted online research and did some backdoor research as well. So what this means is that I creep onto other organizations' websites that have similar missions, and I see who's funding them. Because my thinking is if they're funding another organization with a similar mission, they'll probably fund Jeremiah Zinn. And I do that all the time. So we conducted our initial round of research in March 2013 and conducted a second round in early 2015. So we conduct ongoing research twice a year at the quiet period for us, maybe not for you, but things quiet down after December 15th. So we use that time between that and the end of the year to upgrade our research, make sure everything is up to date, identify potential new funders, because there's always new foundations out there. And then we also do the same thing in June. So we're undergoing our research updates now. We wrote a new compliant, common proposal formatted narrative for the social model program, which included statistics about addiction and its impact on families and communities, as well as quotes and some of the men's stories. So the previous applications were devoid of all of those things. And to this day, I'm surprised at how few people really understand addiction and the way it works and the way it changes brain chemistry. And it's still seen by some people or in some camps as a moral failing or a character defect, which is, very outdated thinking and not at all true. So we want to make sure that people who are reading these proposals have up-to-date information and understand the nature of addiction. So Jeremiah Zinn is one of 29 food pantries in Worcester. There's a very high level of food insecurity here. But when I first started working on them, they were the only ones seeking grant funding. So I wrote a new boilerplate for the food pantry. And again, I included statistics about the prevalence, scope, and impact of chronic hunger and food insecurity, current food pantry data, and quotes, and one client story about a mom who on her first visit cried when she received food, saying she didn't have to send her children to bed with an empty stomach anymore. And if that doesn't get you right in the heart, I don't know what will. And it's true, she did. I happened to be on site when that happened, and she was just so grateful that she didn't have to send her kids to bed hungry, and that's heartbreaking. So, how many grant applications do we submit? Well, at this point, we're up to more than 60 per year. That does not include food drive sponsor requests, which are now handled internally. So part of the way that the food drive supports the food pantry through both food donations, but also sponsorships, which is something that I integrated, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We have a success rate of 73%, and nearly every single funder provides Jeremiah Zinn with 100% of the amount that we ask for. And again, this goes back to our research. We make sure that we have only right fit funders and that we look at the data about how much they're giving away to whom so that we can set our ask at the appropriate amount. So that's why we have such a success rate, is because we do very, very, very thorough homework. We had a situation one time where a funder called to ask if it was okay to double the amount they sent from 5,000 to 10,000. And that was when we asked for support in replacing the 43 unique windows in the organization. And then last year, the Inn received a random check from one of their funders at year end because they had extra money and were so impressed with the work that Jeremiah Zinn is doing, they decided to provide a second unsolicited grant. So Jeremiah Zinn went from having a reputation where a major local funder was saying, hey, I think you guys should merge with somebody, to the point where a local funder now sees them as a standout in the community and gave them a second check. So that just goes to show you what can happen. And it didn't even take 10 years. So I just want to share some of the strategies that I put into place in the first year that changed everything. So I want to talk about the fall appeal. In 2013, there was one letter sent to the entire database, which at that point was about 4,000 people. There was no segmentation. There was no suggested gift amount. 65 donors contributed $5,210. There was a 1.7% response rate. That's not good. The range of gifts was between $5 and $1,000, and the average gift size was $80.15. Now, in 2014, I took over the appeal. I segmented the database. We sent out 557 letters to 461 existing donors. Now, I tagged them as anyone who gave in 2011, 2012, or 2013. We personalized these via mail merge, made a note of their last gift, and asked to increase their gift by $25 because no one had ever asked them to go up the giving ladder. So we figured, even if they don't give us $25 more, even if they give us $5 or $10 more, we'll take it, right? So we also sent out a letter to 96 lapsed donors. It was slightly different, saying, we miss you. Here's the improvements we're making. So these were people who gave in 2010 but hadn't given a gift since. We also included an invitation for them to let us know why they stopped giving, because we wanted to hear that information. Even though it may not have been easy to hear, we wanted them to know. So I offered them a very quick anonymous survey via a link in the letter. And we also followed up by email with this crew. And so the results were that we went from 65 to 123 donors. We went from $5,210 to $17,938.55. Okay. This shows you the power of segmenting your list. There was a 22% overall rate, which is way better than 1.7. The range of gifts again started at $5. There was one elder donor who gave $5 every year, and that was the best they could do. And so thankful for their participation. And then the top gift was $2,000. The average gift size doubled to $116.48. 11 donors, or 9%, increased their gift. 7 of them by 100%, 1 by 50%, 1 by 33%, and 2 by 25%. So that just goes to show you, if you ask people to give more, usually they will. 7 of the 96 lapsed donors came back into the fold, donating a total of $548.40. I guess some 40 cents. The lapsed donors had a 7.3 response rate, and the range of lapsed gifts was between $25 and $238.40. So we nearly doubled our donors and more than tripled our revenue in 1 year. The average gift size in 2014 was nearly 1.5 times that in 2013. We lost 27 donors. So people who made a gift in 2013 did not make a gift in 2014. We did some follow-up with those folks just to make sure we weren't making them mad, and got some valuable input. But we gained 81 donors. There were 81 donors who did not make a gift in 2013 who made a gift in 2014. So the other thing that we did was institute a communications program, because the inn, and again, this is staffing and capacity issues, they weren't sending out any emails. Nobody really knew what was going on. And like I said, their reputation in the community was kind of sagging a little bit. So we instituted a communications program, and the first communication went out September, and the letter hit the mail in November. So in September, we said, We're so sorry that we've been out of touch. We've been a little overwhelmed. But here's some of the wonderful things that are happening at the inn, thanks to you. And then we sent out like another e-newsletter the next month, and then the next month right before the letter hit the mail. So we were trying to bring people up to speed and bring them back into the fold. So communication is really, 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 really important. I can't stress it enough. Most people walk away from organizations they've been supporting because they don't feel like they matter or their gift matters. And so communicating with them shows them that they do matter and it's important. Sorry about my cat. She's 15 and cranky. Muffin, shush. I guess she has a lot to say. So now I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about the food drive. So every July, Jeremiah's Inn runs a week-long food drive to collect contributions of cash and non-perishable items for their pantry. So this is because things tend to run low over the summer because people are on vacation or otherwise distracted. So I suggested, first of all, moving the food drive to the end of the school year, because once people are in vacation mode mentally, and that's usually when the kids are done with school, it's hard to like get their attention. They're concerned about like either, keeping their kids busy for the day or getting them to camp or other activities, and often juggling that with a full-time work schedule. So we moved the food drive to June. And in fact, it just happened last week. So the results are much better now that we're doing it in June and not July. So in 2012, which is before I walked onto the scene, the inn brought in $2,630 in donations during the food drive and 2,608 pounds of food. And in 2014, because I had introduced the idea of sponsorships, we raised 5,400 and brought in almost 3,000 pounds of food. So I don't have the pounds of food, obviously, for last week's food drive or even the last 2 years. But what I can tell you is that the food drive is at its peak now bringing in $19,728.90. That was in 2022. And it's well above $8,000 per year at this point. So again, moving the event to June, getting sponsorships, it was important. The other thing we noticed was that the inn was sending out one generic letter to businesses with a sponsorship form that didn't really offer any visibility benefits and included low LASK amounts. They sent a postcard to their entire database, but it was hard to evaluate its impact. So in 2014, what we did was we changed the sponsorship form to include opportunities for visibility, because that's what businesses want. And we significantly increased the sponsorship level. We also adopted a 2-phase approach. So from January to March, we sent out a bunch of applications to local corporations, then followed up with a personalized letter to local businesses in May. We also created a rigorous social media, and email campaign, which included local TV and radio and news outlets, which alternated statistics and facts with stories from people who had used the pantry. We still sent out the postcard, but with a new design. And in 2015, we started sending out a letter to all existing donors asking them contribute to the drive. So that actually serves as like a spring appeal. So instead of launching a spring appeal, what we do is we go out to the existing donors and ask them to support the food pantry. And the response is pretty phenomenal. So like I said, in 2013, the food drive brought in $3,866. And then in 2021, it brought in $19,003.88. And that was definitely pandemic. 2022 brought in $19,728.90. So you can see that's a huge difference. And again, it wasn't a complete overhaul. We just moved the date and did a few tweaks to the letter and the strategy. And now they're making almost 4 times as much from that one event. So again, it's not about having this huge overhaul. It's about just looking at the impact and the statistics from your current efforts and maybe tweaking them a little, like we did with the food drive, and really changing the results. So, so far we've raised $2.569 million for Jeremiah's Inn. What do we use all this money for? So we resurrected the newsletter, which hadn't gone out since 2006. And that was part of the overhaul of the communications program, which now includes e-newsletters, mailed newsletters, because they have a lot of older folks in their donor database, and boomers love paper. We do social media posts, there's email campaigns, and we created the first ever annual report to donors and funders. And we included a little envelope in it and got quite a significant return. So now there's an annual report that goes out every year, and there are people who use the envelope to make a donation. We have increased staff salaries and improved benefits. Right now, the staff at the inn is actually overqualified. Every single person there is overqualified in the residential program according to the standards set forth by BSAS. So their state funder, has set certain criteria, and every person in the residential program exceeds them. So Jeremiah's Inn offers really super competitive salaries, even though BSAS doesn't fund super competitive salaries. We've done additional fundraising to make that happen. So by increasing the staff salaries and providing improved benefits, retention has gone way up. For those of you who are in any kind of residential program, you know that the turnover is insane, and that a lot of times your managers and supervisors end up maybe doing an overnight shift or a Saturday shift or a Tuesday afternoon shift, because the turnover is hard to keep up with. We have upgraded all the technology at Jeremiah's Inn, including the adoption of a donor database, or a CRM, the development of a new website. Everything is now on the cloud. Everybody has a laptop. Obviously, full-time staff who are at the inn 5 days a week have desktops, but a lot of people now have laptops, which allows them to, for example, do intakes on the fly. So we've also purchased electronic medical records database. So Jeremiah's Inn was one of the first in the Commonwealth to adopt electronic medical records. And by doing so, they could have their case managers spend 20% more time with the guys in treatment, which is significant. So that led to improved outcomes. They are now consistently in the top 10 in the state. Their completion rate is 52% versus the state average of 33%. So this is not just about replacing the floors, it's about improving the quality of the programming. So yes, we've purchased new office furniture. We've painted the interior of the building. We've installed new flooring in the staff offices. We've replaced the roof, which we discovered that the roofing company never finished. So there was like a strip at the top of the roof that they just didn't bother finishing. So you can imagine that, without any roofing shingles, there's water coming in above it. We were like, oh my gosh. But we replaced it. It's all good. We replaced all the windows and the doors. We repaved the parking lot. We made repairs to the exterior of the building and then painted it. We've replaced the heating system. And like I said, for the first time, Jeremiah's Inn has air conditioning, which is quite a benefit versus not having it. We've replaced the phone system. We purchased a van. We purchased generators because we live in New England and sometimes things get a little sketchy. So in terms of the weather and electric, and so what happens is if Jeremiah's Inn loses electricity, they have to relocate 29 men, right? So they have to relocate them to a place that has electricity. They also have to relocate them to places where there is no support, because a lot of times you can just find one hotel room here or two over there. So it just puts the guys in a terrible position where they don't have the support they need. And these guys are in the beginning of their recovery process. So you don't want to come into the inn, be there a week, and then be shuttled off to a hotel. Not good. Installed electronic keypads because the guys were always losing their keys. And we're about to replace all the flooring beyond the staff officing and replace all the furniture. So we've also purchased a sober home. So I'll talk a little bit about how we did that in a second. So I want to talk about the results of strategic planning over the years. So we started in October 2013. We gave out a staff survey, board survey, and sent one to donors, volunteers, and a handful of key stakeholders. And we held a retreat in November with all board and staff. We reviewed the survey results. We crafted a vision for the organization, retooled the mission statement, and identified organizational values. So those are all key foundational pieces for the organization. Then we assessed the organization's performance in 5 key areas. The group used the outcomes of this exercise to identify goals in 4 areas: fundraising, board, program/personnel, and organizational development. So we limited the plan of the scope to 1 year and limited the number of goals in each area because this was their first time out. We wanted to set them, excuse me, up for success. So we formulated work teams or committees, and these were comprised of both board and staff for each of the 4 areas. Each team was charged with the task of fleshing out a detailed 1-year work plan, including goals, objectives, timeline, people assigned, right? This is not just dump and run. You have to take responsibility for getting the goals done, and anticipated outcomes. And the teams met from January to May, with me attending meetings to help guide the process. The resulting plans were presented to and adopted by the board. And we use this process every year through, thank you, Stephen. Stephen says, I'm amazed at what is being accomplished there. What an inspiration. Yeah, I am continually amazed by them. They're just really, really dedicated to what they do. But anyway, so we use this process through 2019 because pandemic, determine our goals for the years and update our long-term goals. So we were able to strengthen the board right away. Remember, one of my key early assessments was that there was a small inactive board. So we created a board manual. I partnered with a board committee of 2 to get that done. And we had each board member sign a conflict of interest statement and a statement of commitment. We checked the attendance policy, recreated it, and then had people say, yes, this is my commitment to the organization. And it also included like an annual gift that reflected their that the inn was in their top 3 priorities and other things. We checked in with all existing board members about their experience and to gauge their level of commitment and interest in continuing. So this was done by the executive director and the board chair. We established a board development committee to oversee the care and feeding of the board. So every year we did a survey with the board to find out where did they feel confident and comfortable and where were they feeling less confident and less comfortable. And as you might imagine, reading financial statements and fundraising came to the top every year. So that meant that we needed to do more training and education in those 2 areas. We reviewed the bylaws to see how many people were actually required on the board. And then we changed the number to a range, so between X and Y people, because boards fluctuate and we wanted to give the inn some breathing room. Then we used the recruitment matrix and a VIP exercise to identify potential board members and develop follow-up plans. So the board development committee working with the entire board to identify potential board members and then executing a follow-up plan. And this included like information about the organization, if they wanted the board president or the executive director to go to coffee with this person, awesome. I did not participate in those because that's not really what I do. It's not my job to recruit your board members because I'm not on your board. So Anyway, 80% of the board now make an annual gift. We're working towards 100%. Board attendance is much better, especially now that meetings are held on Zoom. Board members now complete an individual board member fundraising plan outlining their participation in fundraising activities. We now use Giving Tuesday to conduct a thankathon, which the board members love, and everybody who gets a message from the board loves it. We also end up getting donations, which is hilarious because we never ask for money. And then fundraising is discussed at every single board meeting, right? So we don't have a development committee. We have a board who's involved in development. So through this annual process, we've strengthened the program by switching to electronic medical records, providing case managers with 20% more time, which is significant, establishing standard operating procedures, SOPs, and key performance indicators, KPIs, to measure program success, which is tracked on a weekly basis, client by client. This is the beauty of having electronic medical records, because each guy has an individualized recovery plan, which is then uploaded into the electronic medical record system, and they can literally track how it's going and often identify that this person is struggling and is at risk for relapse. And so they kind of to do harm. A huge change in the day-to-day operations, but with the outcomes. This is why they've gone up to 52% in terms of their graduation rate. So we've created a system for management staff performance, which includes reviewing and updating all job descriptions with well-defined expectations. And this was enough to send some staff out the door. They could see the writing on the wall and decided to find a new job before we suggested they do so. And again, this was in the early days. And then as staff retention went up and because benefits were better and salary was better, we changed the evaluation tool so that it included feedback from clients and coworkers. So it's now a 360 eval, as well as supervised. Case managers were put on a path for remediation. And after their evaluation, a few others decided to find work elsewhere. So there's now a clinical director and a director of operations on board who play key roles in steering the ship day to day. So like I said, we've added a sober house. So how do we do that? Well, we were kind of in a catch-22 situation where foundations wouldn't give us money till we had site control, but we couldn't get any money. So what we did was Jeremiah's Inn actually owns the facility in which they're located. So we took a mortgage out on the building, which made the board very nervous, but they did. And then we could get control of the sober house, then allowed us to leverage funding to not only back, also do all the renovations. So now the sober house is fully occupied. It's providing 16 men with a continuum of care. So they come out of Jeremiah's Inn, and some of them go to the sober house where there is a structured, supportive recovery environment. So that was a huge, huge boon. We actually identified the desire to build a sober house in the 2018 strategic plan, and we were on our way down the path to creating it when, COVID. So COVID kind of messed up the timeline, but we did it. Some of the plans for the future include expanding the treatment beds. So this means getting another location with up to 30 beds in it. 2 more. And possibly move the food pantry to larger locations, and that's where the senior admin staff will go. Because what we're finding is that we need program space. So the other I'll tell you about Jeremiah's Inn, and this is amazing. So first of all, they're consistently in the top 10 in the Commonwealth in terms of their program outcomes. So again, 52% versus 33%, which is pretty significant. The other cool thing is that they offer all kinds of alternative modalities. So the guys learn breath, it's called broga. They do things like go on hikes, they play frisbee golf, they participate in the sober softball league every summer. So there's all kinds of things where Jeremiah's is going beyond kind of the clinical program to help guys get connected in the community so that they have the structure and support when they leave the program. They also do a lot of work around workforce because a lot of these guys have not had a job for a while, or if they had a job, a lot of them got fired because they were caught up in substance abuse disorder, and that is not good for employment. So they do a lot of workforce development, guys who are in early recovery and or have not been in the job market for a while. They help out in the food pantry, which helps set up really good habits about showing up on time, interfacing with the customers, helping restock the shelves, and also giving back, because a big part of recovery is making amends. And so this allows the guys to serve the community in a way that's vital by handing out food to people who are struggling with hunger. So so Jeremiah's Inn is like amazing. They just continue to blow me away. And yes, are we raising tons and tons of money for them? I mean, yeah, they have gone from being a $1.1 million a year organization to a $2.2 million. So we have helped them double their budget in 10 years, which is amazing. But it's also about the leadership and their commitment to always growing and learning. And so one of the things they do is, now that the director of operations is there, they use Six Sigma strategies, and the staff meet every single week and they identify issues and problems. And then the director of operations helps them brainstorm the solution and says, have at it. So the staff is really empowered to do problem solving on the fly, to bring up issues that are getting in the way of their being productive. And so then the director of operations works with them to institute the changes. So again, it's almost like the social model is happening on the staff level, where staff help each other out, they identify problems, they solve problems. So it's that commitment to continuous learning and growth that has really helped get them where they are today. So like I said, when we came in, things were not great, but we have done tremendous work over the last decade to bring them to a top 10 organization in the Commonwealth with a $2.2 million budget. And it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always pretty. We had to send some staff out the door. There were some staff shortages where staff had to either do doubles, or the executive director had to pinch in, or the director of operations, or the clinical director. So it definitely has been like up and down, but I'm really proud of them, and I'm delighted to be able to help them continue to learn and grow. So I just wanted to share this with you because you can see that massive organizational transformation is possible in what is relatively a short period of time. So 10 years might feel like a long time, but if you think about everything we accomplished, that's insane. We did so much in 10 years, and I'm probably forgetting things. So it does require the strategic application of attention and resources, as well as a commitment to change. So if you want to see similar results for your organization, get in touch. I would love to help you. And if you want any of the following tools, please send an email to sarah@sarahblang.com. Jesse, I would love it if you would put my email in the chat for people, with the names of the documents in the email. So the documents are the recruitment matrix, board VIP exercise, and the individual board member fundraising plan. So those are some of the options for you. I'm here to help and support you and your transformation. I'll give you the 2024 results. Well, I'll give you 2023. So the annual appeal brought in $13,061.45. The food drive brought in $19,273.93. They resurrected the comedy night, which brought in $2,600. Grants last year, we brought in $265,000, $511.88. And then this year, so far, the food drive, and these are only numbers through the end of May, so these are not up to date. Food drive brought in $6,700, but excuse me, I have no doubt that those numbers will go up. Like I said, comedy night brought in $2,600. Obviously, the fall appeal hasn't gone out. And so far, we brought in about $70,000 in grants. Now, what I want to say is we just submitted about $50,000 worth of grants in May. And by the end of June, we will have submitted $525,000 more in grant requests. So we are very busy right now. So again, happy to help you, support you, help you reach significant levels of transformation, and just help you make the impact you want to make in the world. So hope that was helpful. If you've got any questions, drop me an email. If you want any of those documents, let me know. And we will get them out to you. I am just going to, I can't seem to get the chat up for some reason. So if you have any questions, get in touch. I'm here to help. All right. Thanks, everybody.
For tuning in. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Got topics you want me to cover? Organizations you want me to showcase? Let me know. Also, I'm here to help you revolutionize philanthropy at your nonprofit. If you want to talk about what that looks like, drop me an email.